Onegaishimasu. Good afternoon. This video we're going to complete Kata's GekiSai dai Ichi and GekiSai dai Ni. We've done the previous video there where I did the hand performance only. So today we're going to go ahead and combine the hands with the feet. And we're going to teach it in segments. I've found that this works better in teaching it and practicing and going back and checking the students so that they can get a little bit at a time. I can instill a few principles and they can practice on that, and then as they get better at it, then I begin to teach them the next part, and it's basically just taking what they learned in the first part and adding it to the second part and the third part and the fourth part, which is I teach this in 4 segments. So let's go through the kata first. Just the footwork on the first 6 movements with the repeat of each side. So we just start from Heiko Dachi position. Now, for me, the most important part about teaching this kata is transitioning. Sanchin wasn't too hard because it's mostly front and back with the exception of the turn. And so we have the same idea of the transitioning in there. And this time we're going to use a little bit more coordinated body movement, a little bit more idea of koshi, understanding how the trunk of the body turns and directs everything, and allowing the body to stay aligned with it. What I like to call the box, if I turn the whole box turns, and you notice that my feet, my knees turn and face always the direction that I'm going. I don't know any way to, it's like think of a car, the tires. If I want to turn that way, I turn my tires. So starting from Asugi Dachi, just like we started with Sanchin, shift the weight forward with just a little bit more extra weight on the left leg. This will allow the right leg to come out. So to do my turn. Now from this point, remember I'm fighting. Somebody's put their hands on me. I'm basically about this close to my attacker. So I don't have this ability to move into that space that they're already applying. They're already using. So from here, as I begin to shift my weight and drop it, this allows me to move my foot out without actually moving my body. Because remember, my first technique is this way. So I don't want to go this way and then shift my weight this way. It doesn't make any sense. So once I've gotten here and I shift that weight, now using my left hip, I begin to pull back. And that's what allows me to turn my body properly. And it moves all in a single unit. Now, when we talk about the 5 combative postures, body alignment, footwork, timing, distancing, and placement of technique and targeting, a lot of times when we think of the idea of targeting and placement of technique, we're thinking our punches, our blocks, our kicks. But we also can take and do the placement with our feet. So as I do this step and turn, I just don't turn my foot in the Sanchin, I place my foot in that position. So it becomes more conscious and I just don't wait for it to happen automatically. So I place my knee inside and I place my foot outside. And that's going to also help me with proper body alignment so I don't change my turn. So going back to the beginning, starting from here, shift that weight, let that foot come out, pull that left hip back into place, place that heel out. So you're going to feel nice and you're going to be able to check and that you're already straight. Shift that weight forward just like we did in Sanchin Dachi. It's the same stance. And we're right back. Now if you're facing a mirror, you can see, again, I had this A-frame from the insertion of my hip down my leg to my toes. I had this nice straight line. I didn't make a straight line. I didn't make it aesthetically appealing. I put everything in bone alignment, the way it's supposed to be lined. So you see a nice straight line from the inside of my ankle all the way up through my groin. Get this nice A-frame. If my knees are out, then I lose it, and I'm already falling off balance because I've opened up my claw. I'm not sitting in my stance. Now to step backwards, I follow the same process of how I turned. I begin to pull that right hip back, allowing this hip to move. So I'm opening. So we talked before about the idea of hinges, allowing these hinges to work. But I also have the hinge in my hip. So I open this, I begin to open this hinge and let that foot follow. And again, I'm placing that hip where I want it to go. So facing from the front. Now, once you learn on this side, you can go back. And what I like to do with my students is, okay, you've done it on this side. Now you go back and do that on the other side, that tells me that they're actually learning and now know how to go home and practice. So it's one thing to tell my students to go home and practice, but you have to teach them how to practice. Nobody taught kids how to do homework in school. That's why they don't like it. If you taught them how to do homework, they might do better at it. So that's the whole idea. Give them some intent, make them feel confident that what they're practicing is right and that you have a means to go back and check it. So again, starting from here, let that weight start to drop a little bit more to the left, let the leg come out. Notice there's not a lot of body shifting. Pull this hip back. You already see my leg starting to turn. Like I said, heel out. Let the weight come forward. Now again, I'm not moving forward. The person is right there already. They've already absorbed that space. Now I just want to be able to move that foot forward. Again, pulling that weight, pulling my hip back into position. My foot will fall in place already. If I didn't, I'd fall down. So what I don't want to do is this. Here comes that punch. Let it come in and then move. Let that door, let it open up like a hinge. Here's my hinge again. Pull that hip back. You notice this turn and come up. Placing my heel in that position, not just waiting for it to go there by chance. Shift that weight, get that foot move, open that hinge, and come back to position. So we want to focus on this part, keeping that weight, the idea of always going back to San Chin. Otherwise, we lose that connectivity. It's always going back home, going back to Grandma's house at Christmas. So again, shift that weight. Now I can move that foot very easily. There's my weight on the inside of my foot. I start to turn. Do this a few times, and then you'll understand where that turns at. Shift that weight, let that leg move. I like to think I've got somebody here, I'm stepping behind them if I'm going to take them down. And then from here, pull this hip back, let it open up. Sit in your stance. Now you don't have to push down, but let it sit naturally, ride that horse. Pull that hip back. You see how both my knees are starting to turn? Place that foot. Shift the weight, step, pull the hip, and back. Now, if we add the hands to this, it's important to remember you don't want to do your technique while you're turning. You've either done it after your turn or in the middle of it if you understand the timing of it. But we want to make sure that what we're doing is we're keeping everything again inside this box. I don't want my arms wailing way out here. I want to keep everything where they're supposed to be. If we were fighting, I'm not going to throw my hand out here to throw it here and throw it here. The same thing, if I was going to block, I'm not going to bring my hand out. So we want to keep the same basic common sense principles that we would use in sparring and apply that to our kata. That's the whole purpose. Connect the real to the practice. That's the whole intent. Take what you learned over here, practice it solo over here. So if we start from this position and I've come to here, I don't do anything with my hands until I get here. Now I can block. And I take the same idea as if I were doing San Chin. I just come here. Follow San Chin. Boom. Now, the more that you give your student, or you as a student, the more you give yourself something that's kind of common sense, it makes sense, you'll pick it up. That's the whole idea. Is we want to make it common sense. Give it something to you that matches your lifestyle. Fly comes to hit my nose, I want to swat it away. Okay? Just swat it. So if I'm here, I swat. Well, there's my technique. But what I've done is I've taken something that's natural, and you notice my hand's just coming straight up. Just straight up. Straight up, there's my block. As I step in, I pull down. There's my punch. Now my punch, you notice, is this center line. I'm not punching at center line. But because my arm followed the contour of my body and then I extend, it ends up in that position. So the position is there because of the natural skeletal alignment, not because I punched there. That doesn't make it proper. Follow that inside, let that hand turn over. Now, as I want to go step back, as I start to pull, I drop this hand. I like to think I'm grabbing and pulling down, and allows this to come through. Remember, I want to clear that path. This arm's in the way. So I clear the path for this hand. Now, keep in mind where your hand's at. If I stand up and drop my hand, that's the natural position. So I don't want to go unnatural, so that's the position I'm going to land in. So here, at this coming in, step back in that nice straight line. Now, to go the other direction. If I'm here, now I'm coming this way. So I begin to turn everything. Knees, everything's turning as a single unit. And I placed my heel out. Bring this up. Bring this up. Like doing Sanchin Kata. Bring it up. Shift that weight in. That foot moves nice and smooth. There's my punch. I begin to, almost like I'm going to neko washidachi. Block. If I were in a front stance, my hand would be in the rightful position. So there's no real difference. So that's the first part. Now, if you understand that, you understand some of the other transition through the kata, and always protecting that center line. If I'm punching, I want to protect that center line as I punch. As I block, I want to protect that center line. Always protect the center line. I don't care if the punch attack comes from this angle or around in a circle, it's still coming to my center line. So if I turn, I turn to my center line. I don't block across my center line, I turn to my center line. So from the kata, if we were here, so that was the first segment. Now to go to the next segment, coordinated movement between my elbow and my knee. So think of in judo, you have your kube, that's your neck. Then you have your te kubi, neck of the wrist. Ashi kubi, neck of the foot. So if we think of my shoulders, my hips, same type of joint. My forearm, my bicep is my thigh. My calf, same bone structure as my forearms, my ankle, my foot. So if you think of those as staying together, then you end up with a much more freer body position, and you don't leave stuff hanging out. Everything's connected. Coordinated body movement, natural body movement. Okay? If you're watching baseball, it's all naturally coordinated. So from here, here's my target. I don't want to come over here. I want to stay inside. This comes here. That's my first block. Now my Sanchin Dachi, I've cleared my path, allows this block. So again, from here, knee, I've already started to see a little shift. Turn that foot, middle block. Clear that path, step through, middle block. So I'm not just clearing the path for this hand, I'm clearing the path for this foot. So if I'm here, I clear my path. It's already starting to bring me forward a little bit. Block. Now, keep this foot here. A real common mistake is this foot turns. If I'm fighting, if you and I are sparring and I see that foot turn, you're mine. So you want to make sure, again, remember, you're close. So you don't need extension on this kick. This is a very short kick. Half the time I might be hitting with that shin coming underneath, but it's a short, close quarter, always close quarter. So here, keep the knee here. As the knee comes up, that will give you the natural koshi. That'll pull that hip in. It would be no different if then I was doing my wakashigeri, and I would want to pivot that hip naturally. So the same thing here. Understand the timing within that technique. So I hit. Now, once I'm here, look at my A-frame. I don't want my knee out here. I'm already starting to push myself off balance. Where does my weight go? Always to the inside of my foot. Let me just go back so you can see. Always to the inside of my foot. That's what gives me this alignment. So my knee is still straight, but it's not here where my weight's to the outside of my foot. Weight to the inside. Let it be natural. See, it's the same. This is natural standing position. I haven't changed anything in my structure. Now, this hip here, just a little bit turn. So I don't want to turn my upper body. I turn my whole trunk, but it's a small turn. It's not over exaggerate it. Turn it. Let this slide again. Remember, always sliding next to that body. That'll give me a nice line between my elbow and my knee, going into the inside positioning of my foot. Here. Drop it so that aligns my fist right to that face. Drop it straight down, block. Pull that hip back and let that punch slide in. So that's that next segment. So if we have segment number 1, which is the first 6 moves. So segment number 2, what's the key points? Shift that weight. Let this do the work. And then block. Otherwise you get here, then you block. Here we want to use this to help us in this technique. Shift, step, place that back foot, block, clear that path. So it just clears this path. Remember, this is traveling forward. So I let it travel. I don't want to extend my hand out, but I want to kind of extend my body just a little bit. Just enough from here that will allow my arm to trade forward. There's my path. So now I cleared this path for this foot as well. And let them travel together. And I'm right back to my A-frame, what I call the A-frame here. Keep the foot in that position, knee up, that foot will turn. Allow that little tilt. When this hand comes back, it'll turn the body the rest of the way, keeping it. I like to think of this as well as somebody coming in and punching my head or kicking my head, and I'm blocking. So however you want to think about it, but that'll also help keep it in tight. If you're thinking of somebody kicking your head, block it. Slide inside that their strike, down, and then punch. Now from here, the same thing we did. Again, I'm using my hip, and I'm gonna let that slide in. I'm in cat stance. Always neko washidachi. If you're moving from one stance to the other, forward or back, somewhere in there is neko washidachi. So if I turn this way here, and I begin to do my turn, I'm already turned. This arm folds straight in. I don't have to bring it in. I just fold it around my body, letting this hand drop. So it's almost like a full body block. Pull this in, dropping that weight. Now this knee can come straight up. There's your stomp. Pull the shoulders back, open. Now what do I do from here? Using that elbow, pulling it in. I'm not pulling straight back, inside. You're punching me, I'm gonna block it. Use that arm. So from here, pulling this hip back, not here, so I'm not doing this. This hip, my back hip's in the way, so what do? I move it out of the way, which now allows this motion. From side view, pull this in. The angle is almost perfect for this. And block. And the same thing we did when in the beginning, I don't have a forward movement. I'm right here. Here's my attacker. Well, whoever he might be, here. So I have to step in that space that's available. And then from here again, leave that leg inside, knee up. The raising of the knee will turn this hip. Turn that body, allow this arm slide up. Back fist, low block, and yakuski. And again, pull. Use this hip. Let this leg slide like it weighs 1,000 pounds. Don't push up. Slide it in. Let this arm here, up, down. Open. Remember to open up that chest. Lock, close that back. Now from here, what do? As this hip comes back, this comes forward. This comes forward. Then back, pull, punch, step up, lock this, pull back, and punch. Open the bottom hand, top hand comes in. When it gets to your chest, they both open up and then they come down. Now, another key point to be conscious of is the stepping back to Sakusudachi is when we do this technique, watch your shoulders are not unlevel. Push that shoulder down. Just think of San Chin. Push that shoulder down. Pull. Look at my A-frame. Punch. So you notice my elbow's lower. I don't want to be all the way extended. Now I'm off balance. I don't have a balance of yin and yang in that body. Step. Notice elbows low. I'm hooking, pushing out. Let it slide. Punch, pushing that right shoulder down. Open. Now, watch this. Turn the knee, heel in, but keep the knee forward as you come in. Always thinking of correct body alignment. What works with my body? What's correct? What's going to put me in a bad position in an attack? So that would cover GekiSai dai Ichi. GekiSai dai Ichi is extremely important, especially when we get to the Nekowashi movement of the kata and the introduction of Toraguchi. A lot of times when you see this motion is much too big because again, they haven't kept that coordinated movement. They've allowed the body to come away from the feet. So we're going to work with Washi-uke, or you might want to call it Kaki-uke. There's also different manners where you have it this way, or if it comes out and back, more of a Kaki-uke. So if we work my Washi-uke, what we want to work is this elbow. So you'll notice the hand position. The hand position is not here because I did this. The hand position is because I did this. It's the elbow. It's the same thing I did if I did Chudan-uke. You notice that the thumb is down here, so that replaces it. It's the same idea. It's the elbow that puts the hand in that position. If I put my hand out straight, it'd be just a normal shuke or shote. So again, from here, pull, hip, elbow in. Step in, moving the elbow, clear my path. Now, the left hand can come in, sliding there. Keeping that elbow down. Clear that path. The same thing we did earlier in the first half when we did Chudan-uke. Clear that path, starting to come forward. There's the path for my foot. There's the path for my block. Using that elbow. Stepping back. There's that path. And then my block. So this way I don't have a block that's this big. For beginners, that's okay. To exaggerate and bring it in. The bigger the exaggeration, it's kind of like tracing paper. You make it big and it's slower, it's exaggerated. So exaggeration for beginners, you can bring it bigger in. Now the timing here is very important because it's a very common mistake after they've done the slow step. They'll come in and they do the two quick steps. A lot of times what you'll find is they come in and they never set their stance. And they're already moving back. It's 3 different techniques. From here, it's 1, 2, 3. There has to be a slight distinction, a slight separation, but you have to set that stance. So once I set the first one, here, set. So make sure that you practice it separate. Don't think of it as one technique. Otherwise, it's going to be off, and if you're doing this with somebody and they push you, you're going to be completely off balance. So now we've done the second one of these. Our kick, elbow at the hanmei, punch, same thing. See, from here, it's just the fold. Fold it here. Now, there's that hip. Coordinated effort between this elbow, this hip. It pulls into each other. So if I stand at an angle this way, and I turn, you see this position? It's the same thing as if I were doing Chudan-uke. So from here, bring that elbow in. I don't have to worry about twisting my hand because I've done here. This is what I'm using. I'm using my chest muscles here. And this hand has to travel only this far. Same thing as if I did Saifa. Boom. Now I need to step behind myself. Use my hip, push. Let your leg drag. Don't pull it to you. If you do, you're already pushing your weight back. You're going to lose the balance of your technique. So if I start from here and I pull that butt back and that comes straight in, step, I just let this leg drag. There's my block. Stop your block here, not down here. You've already missed your technique. Here. Boom. And then your push. Now, to step over, if I had come from this position and I've gotten down to my neko ashidachi, this foot is in front. I need to bring this foot now in line with my left heel. So from here, I step left heel, hip. Everything moves as a single unit. Let that leg drag. Now I just come to there. So if I were here, I step in. This hand is already in position. Do my block, press. Inner arm, inner thigh, use this hip, turn, and finish the kata. So always, all the way through this kata, I'm stressing this turning of the hip. That's the beginning of teaching my koshi. So if I'm here in the beginning and I pull this back, I'm going to get that pow, I'm going to get that pop. Okay, get that pop here. Pull this back. Sometimes what I'll do is I have my students grab somebody in a bear hug, have them step out and try to throw them. So they begin to understand the amount of torque and turn that they want to get into that movement. And a lot of times after they've done it 2 or 3 times and they begin to get that person off balance, they begin to understand it. It becomes a part of their kata because in their mind, they know what it feels like to be held, what that resistance feels like, and what it takes to be able to throw that person and get them off of them. Adding into the hands, it becomes that much more effective. So once we've hit the first chop, let that hip, let that elbow come in. I'm already turned. Clear my path so my block can come more forward, not so much side to side. Clear my path. It kind of starts to lean that foot, placing that heel. I'm here. There's my technique. Shift. So now I'm kind of shifting back a little bit. Block. Kick. Now, Hanmei. This hand, I turn a little bit, but this hand pulling back gets me turned the rest of the way. Making sure that this is inside, not sticking out here. Protect that body. Strike. Straight down. Not this motion or this. You'll see this a lot. Here, just drop it straight down. Punch. Notice this. It comes right here, right to my face. Straight down. Lock that back and the strike. Strike. Pull in. Here comes the punch. Block it. Boom, right there. Step back, slide. Press. Step. Turn. See how I'm using here. Turn. Block. Turn. And finish the kata. So again, the more that you add to this, throw the punch. I'm standing here, somebody goes to punch it at my head, I block it. Well, there it is right there. So whatever you can add realistically to your students' training or your own training that will help you begin to understand and recognize, that's the whole intent of your training. Don't wait for your instructors to tell you what to do. Figure it out. Do something wrong. Cynthia and I were talking about something the other day, and somebody had given him something. It wasn't absolutely correct, but the idea was that they were thinking. That's the greatest compliment you can give your instructor, is that you're beginning to think on your own. That's how we got to where we're at. It wasn't that somebody come and said, oh, you have to do this. You're doing something, you go like, oh, wait. So more times than many, we discover Bonkai. We're not taught Bonkai. So there's the Bonkai that you're taught, the obvious, that helps you give a little bit of application. But then as you begin to work stuff, somebody's grabbing your wrist and you pull it up, boom, I'm out of the technique. So you have to give yourself different variations, different levels of attack. If I'm going to teach this punch, I'm doing it from a wrist grab, a double wrist grab, a bear hug, a front bear hug, all kind of different methods. But I have to be able to use that one single technique from a variety of attacks. So that helps them begin to understand that, wow, I can use this one technique. It's sort of like the Swiss Army knife. You know, it doesn't have just one blade. You open it up, it's got refrigerators and air conditioners and screwdrivers. It's got everything under the sun in there. Every technique that you do can have that application. As an example, if I'm doing this punch, this is one striking surface, but I might be striking with my thumb into the neck or here on the stomach meridian, using this to strike down. I might be using the little knuckle, hit up, boom. I don't know. It depends on what the situation gives me. So I know I don't want to be hitting bone to bone, but sticking this little knuckle right in that throat and in that direction is exactly the way it wants to go. So again, the level of your understanding and your training is what makes this a true martial science study, not just kata that you do every day. I hope this was useful to you. If it gives you a different idea, fine and dandy. If it helped you with just your basics, good. Thank you very much. どうもありがとうございました。